He was once a man everyone recognized before he even spoke.
Be brave.
His name opened doors, his signature moved millions, and his presence commanded respect. People waited for hours just to shake his hand. Newspapers praised his success, business magazines printed his smiling face, and young entrepreneurs called him their role model. He lived in a world of glass offices, private jets, and quiet confidence. To him, life felt controlled, planned, and secure. He believed success was permanent, and failure was something that happened only to others. The fall did not come slowly. It came like a storm that gives no warning. One morning, he woke up to dozens of missed calls. By noon, his company offices were surrounded by reporters. By evening, his accounts were frozen, his name was trending for all the wrong reasons, and whispers of fraud turned into loud accusations. People he trusted began to disappear. Phone calls went unanswered. Smiles turned into cold silence. The same media that once praised him now questioned his character. Allowing investigators into his office felt unreal, like watching someone else's life fall apart. Files were taken, computers were seized, and meetings were replaced with interrogations. Lawyers spoke in careful words, never promising anything. His family tried to stay strong, but fear lived in their eyes. At night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything slipped away so fast. He told himself it was a misunderstanding, that truth would win. Deep inside, doubt slowly grew. The day of his arrest changed everything. Cold metal cuffs closed around his wrists, and for the first time, he felt truly powerless. Cameras flashed as officers led him away. He wanted to explain, to shout his side of the story, but no one was listening. The world had already decided who he was. In that moment, the millionaire disappeared, and a prisoner was born. Prison was nothing like he imagined. The walls were gray, the air heavy, and time moved painfully slow. His cell was small, with no luxury, no privacy, and no comfort. Nights were the hardest. Silence was broken only by distant sounds and his own thoughts. He replayed his past over and over, remembering decisions he once made without care. Some were mistakes, some were careless, and some were driven by pride. Now, each one felt heavy. The people around him did not see a powerful man. They saw another inmate. His expensive suits were replaced with plain clothes. His confident walk became cautious. In meetings, he once spoke, and others listened. Now, he listened, quietly, hoping to survive each day without trouble. Pride slowly faded, replaced by shame. He thought about the workers he laid off without a second thought, the families affected by his decisions, and the lives he never noticed while chasing success. Visitors stopped coming. Friends from high society vanished completely. Only his lawyer appeared sometimes, speaking of delays and long processes. Hope became fragile. Some days, he believed he would be cleared. Other days, despair swallowed him whole. He cried alone, something he had never done before. Tears came not only from fear, but from regret. He realized how lonely wealth could be when it was gone. He began to notice things he never noticed before. The pain in other prisoners' eyes. The stories of broken families. The reality of men who never had the chances he had wasted. Slowly, his view of life started to change. Power, he learned, did not protect the heart. Money could not buy peace. Respect given out of fear or status disappeared quickly, but kindness and honesty stayed longer in memory. One evening, sitting on his narrow bed, he accepted a truth he had avoided. Whether guilty or innocent in the eyes of the law, he had lived without humility. He had believed himself untouchable. Prison stripped that belief away. It forced him to face himself without titles or applause. That was the true beginning of his fall, not just from wealth, but from ego. As days passed, the strong businessman slowly became a quiet man searching for meaning. He did not know how his story would end. He only knew that the man he used to be was gone. Behind those bars, with nothing left but time and thought, his journey toward understanding had just begun. Beyond the tall prison walls, life moved in a way the prisoners could not see. Just a few streets away from the heavy gates and watchtowers, there was a small neighborhood where survival itself was a daily challenge. The houses were old and close together, paint peeling, roofs leaking when it rained. People here did not talk about dreams very often, because most of their energy was spent on getting through the day. In one of those small houses lived a black woman and her young daughter. The house had only 2 rooms, worn furniture, and very little comfort, but it was always clean. The woman believed that even if life gave little, dignity should never be lost. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise. She prepared simple food, packed her bag, and left for work while the streets were still quiet. Some days she cleaned offices, other days she worked in kitchens or helped elderly people. The work changed, but the tiredness stayed the same. Money was always short. There were days when she had to choose between paying for electricity or buying better food. Still, she never complained in front of her daughter. When the little girl asked why they could not buy toys like other children, the mother smiled and said, "We have something better. We have each other." Those words became the child's strength. The girl was small for her age, with curious eyes that noticed everything. She walked to school wearing the same shoes for years, even when the soles became thin. Other children sometimes laughed, but she never cried. Her mother had taught her that her worth did not depend on what she owned. After school, she helped with small chores, fetched water, and sometimes sat quietly doing homework while her mother rested for a few minutes. In the evenings, the neighborhood changed. Tired people returned home, children played in the streets, and soft music came from open windows. The girl loved sitting outside, listening to stories from older neighbors. She learned about pain, loss, and hope from those stories. She learned that life could be unfair, but kindness could make it lighter. Not far from their home stood the prison. Its walls felt like a shadow over the area. The girl often asked her mother about it. She wanted to know who lived inside and why they were there. The mother never spoke with hatred. She explained that people made mistakes, some big, some small, and that the law decided their punishment. She always added that no one was born bad. This lesson stayed deep in the child's heart. Sometimes, community groups organized small charity visits near the prison area, helping families of inmates or offering food and clothes. The mother joined when she could, not because she had extra, but because she believed sharing even a little mattered. She took her daughter along, teaching her by example that helping others was not about wealth, but about heart. The girl noticed many things during these visits. She saw tired faces, sad eyes, and people who had lost hope. Unlike adults, she did not judge. To her, everyone was simply human. She waved at guards, smiled at strangers, and asked innocent questions that made people pause and think. Life for them was not easy, but it was honest. The mother taught her daughter to pray before sleeping, not for riches, but for strength. They spoke about tomorrow, even when tomorrow looked uncertain. The girl believed deeply in her mother. To her, her mother could fix anything. When the roof leaked, her mother found a way. When there was no food, her mother managed. In the child's mind, her mother was powerful in ways money could never be. As the prison lights shone in the distance at night, the girl sometimes looked toward them with curiosity, not fear. She did not know that soon, her path would cross with someone inside those walls. She did not know that her simple world, shaped by poverty and love, would touch a life broken by power and loss. Outside the prison fence, life continued quietly, unaware that a small voice from this struggling neighborhood was about to change everything. The day began like many others, slow and heavy, with the prison yard filled with tired footsteps and guarded silence. The prisoner sat on a cold bench, staring at the ground as if answers might appear between the cracks in the concrete. His face, once seen on billboards and business magazines, now carried deep lines of regret. He barely noticed the movement around him anymore. Days blended together, and hope felt like a distant memory. That afternoon, a small group of community volunteers was allowed into an area near the outer yard. It was not common, and most prisoners paid little attention. But that day, something different happened. Among the adults stood a small girl, holding her mother's hand. She looked out of place, not afraid, just curious. Her eyes moved slowly, taking everything in, as if she was trying to understand the sadness around her. The prisoner noticed her by accident. A soft sound broke the silence, a gentle laugh as the girl pointed at a bird resting on the fence. That sound felt strange in a place built to remove joy. He looked up, surprised. It had been a long time since he heard a child's voice. For a moment, the walls did not feel so heavy. The girl noticed him looking. Instead of turning away, she smiled. It was not a polite smile or a forced one. It was natural and warm. The prisoner felt his throat tighten. He quickly looked away, ashamed of the tears forming in his eyes. He did not want to be seen as weak, especially by a child. But children see things adults hide. The girl gently pulled her hand from her mother's and took a few small steps closer, stopping where the guards allowed. She looked at the man's face carefully. She did not see a criminal or a millionaire. She saw a sad person. "Why are you crying, sir?" she asked in a soft voice. The question caught everyone off guard. Guards exchanged looks, unsure how to react. The mother stepped forward, ready to apologize, but the prisoner raised his hand slightly, asking her to wait. He swallowed hard, trying to find words. None came. His silence answered more than speech ever could. The girl frowned, thinking deeply, then smiled again with confidence only a child could have. "Don't cry," she said. "My mommy will save you." Those words fell into the air like something fragile and powerful at the same time. The yard grew quiet. The prisoner felt something break inside him. He laughed once, a short broken sound, then covered his face. Tears fell freely now. He did not know why her words touched him so deeply. Maybe it was because no one had spoken to him with hope in months. Maybe it was because she believed in something he had forgotten. The mother rushed forward, embarrassed, but the guards did not stop her. She apologized quickly, explaining that her daughter did not understand the situation. The prisoner shook his head slowly. "She understands more than anyone," he said quietly. For the first time since his arrest, he felt seen as a human being. Not a headline. Not a case number. Just a man who had fallen. He asked the girl her name. She told him proudly. He asked her what her mother did. She smiled and said, "She helps people." The answer stayed with him. As the visit ended, the girl waved enthusiastically. The prisoner stood there long after the volunteers left, replaying the moment again and again. Her words echoed in his mind, simple yet full of belief. That night, back in his cell, he did not feel completely alone. For the first time in months, he slept without nightmares. Days passed, but the memory remained. He started looking toward the yard during similar visits, hoping to see that small face again. He thought about the mother, about her life, about how someone with so little could speak with such certainty about saving someone else. That brief encounter became a turning point. It planted a seed in his heart, one that made him question everything he once believed about strength and power. He realized that rescue did not always come from wealth or influence. Sometimes, it came from innocence. He did not know how his story would continue, but he knew one thing for sure. A child's words had reached a place no lawyer, no friend, and no amount of money ever could. The words stayed with him long after the prison yard returned to its usual silence. "My mommy will save you." They repeated in his mind like a quiet echo he could not escape. Back in his cell, surrounded by gray walls and metal bars, the sentence felt out of place, almost impossible. Save him from what? From prison, from punishment, or from the emptiness that had settled deep inside him? That night, sleep did not come easily. He lay on his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the girl's face, her steady voice, and the confidence with which she spoke. There was no doubt in her words. No fear. No condition. Just belief. For the first time in a long while, he questioned why such simple words could shake him so deeply. In the following days, his behavior began to change in small but noticeable ways. He started waking up earlier, sitting quietly instead of pacing with anger. He listened more during conversations with other inmates, noticing their struggles rather than blocking them out. He even stopped avoiding the yard, hoping to feel that moment again, even if the girl did not return. Other prisoners noticed the change. The man who once kept to himself now shared his food, offered advice, and listened without judgment. He did not speak about his past success anymore. That part of his life felt distant, almost like a story about someone else. The words of a child had slowly softened the hard shell he built around his heart. One afternoon, during a scheduled counseling session, he surprised himself by speaking honestly. He admitted his fears, his regrets, and the shame he carried. The counselor listened quietly, then said something simple. Hope can come from unexpected places. The prisoner nodded, thinking of the girl. Outside the prison, the mother and daughter continued their difficult life, unaware of the effect they had created. The girl talked about the crying man at home, telling her mother that he looked lonely. The mother listened carefully, her face thoughtful. She did not dismiss her daughter's feelings. Instead, she reminded her that kindness should be given freely, even when we do not understand the full story. Back in prison, the man began writing letters. Not to ask for favors, but to confess. He wrote apologies to people he had hurt, even if they might never reply. He wrote to former employees, acknowledging the pain caused by his decisions. Each letter lifted a small weight from his chest. He was no longer hiding behind excuses. The memory of the girl became his anchor during dark moments. Whenever despair returned, he remembered her eyes, full of trust. He wondered how someone so young could believe so strongly in her mother's power to help. Slowly, he realized it was not about legal power or money. It was about moral strength. Weeks later, during another community visit, he saw the mother again, though from a distance. She did not notice him at first. When their eyes finally met, she offered a polite nod, unaware of the storm of gratitude inside him. He wanted to thank her, but words failed him once again. That brief connection pushed him to continue changing. He enrolled in prison programs, helped others learn basic skills, and avoided conflicts. Guards began to notice his discipline. He was no longer just serving time. He was transforming. In quiet moments, he reflected on his past. He realized how often he ignored people who had less than him. How power blinded him to human suffering. The girl's words exposed that truth without accusation. That was their power. The promise she made was not a legal guarantee. It was a mirror. It forced him to see what saving truly meant. Saving did not always mean freedom from prison. Sometimes, it meant freedom from arrogance, hatred, and despair. As days turned into months, the man understood that whatever happened next in his case, he was already being rescued in a different way. A rescue that began with a child's simple belief and grew into a deep personal awakening. He did not know if the mother would ever play a direct role in his future. But he knew this with certainty. A little girl's words had planted hope where none existed, and that hope was quietly rebuilding him from the inside. Time slowly revealed truths that had been buried for years. While the prisoner continued his quiet transformation behind bars, memories from the past began to surface, memories connected to a woman he barely remembered but whose presence now felt important. The more he reflected, the more one face kept returning to his mind, the face of the girl's mother. Years earlier, when his company was at its peak, she had been one of thousands of employees. She worked in the background, never demanding attention, never complaining. She was efficient, honest, and dependable. But during a sudden corporate restructuring, her name appeared on a list of workers to be dismissed. He had signed the document without reading the details. To him, it was just a number, just another cost-saving decision. To her, it was the beginning of years of struggle. After losing her job, life did not fall apart overnight. It fell apart slowly, painfully. She searched for work everywhere, taking whatever she could find. Some employers took advantage of her situation, paying less, expecting more. Still, she endured. When her daughter was born, responsibility doubled, but so did her strength. She promised herself that her child would grow up with values stronger than poverty. What made her different was not what she lost, but how she responded. She never spoke badly about her former employer, even when she had every reason to. She taught her daughter that anger only adds weight to suffering. Forgiveness, she believed, was not weakness. It was freedom. Inside the prison, the man slowly learned of this connection through quiet conversations with a volunteer who worked with community programs. When he heard the woman's name and past employment, his heart sank. Guilt hit him harder than any court sentence ever could. The person who had shown him silent mercy was someone he had once hurt without even knowing her story. For days, he could not stop thinking about it. He replayed moments from his executive life, remembering how often he chose speed over fairness, profit over people. He realized that his downfall did not begin with the scandal. It began with choices like these, small decisions made without empathy. Meanwhile, the mother continued her life without expecting anything from the past. When community workers spoke about legal cases, she listened carefully. When she learned about the imprisoned millionaire's situation, she recognized his name but felt no anger. She only felt concern. She believed that justice should be fair, not cruel, and that truth deserved a voice, even for those who once held power. Quietly, without telling her daughter, she began asking questions. She connected with people who understood legal processes. She shared what she knew, not to defend wrongdoing, but to ensure that facts were not ignored. She believed that punishment should be based on truth, not public pressure. The man sensed something shifting around his case. His lawyer mentioned new perspectives, overlooked details, and possible errors in earlier investigations. For the first time, progress felt real. But instead of celebrating, the man felt humbled. He knew this was not happening because of influence or money. It was happening because someone chose fairness over resentment. When he finally understood the full picture, emotion overwhelmed him. The woman who struggled to survive, the woman he once dismissed with a signature, was now standing quietly for justice. Not for him as a person, but for what was right. He wrote her a letter, carefully choosing each word. He did not ask for help. He only apologized. He acknowledged her pain, her loss, and his ignorance. He thanked her for raising a child who could speak hope so naturally. He did not expect a reply. When the mother received the letter, she read it slowly. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, but from relief. An apology, she believed, was a powerful thing. She did not respond immediately. She only prayed for wisdom. The connection between their lives was no longer invisible. It was shaping both of them in different ways. His journey toward accountability deepened. Her belief in compassion grew stronger. Neither of them knew how the story would end, but both understood that something rare was happening. A past marked by imbalance was being corrected, not through revenge, but through conscience. And at the center of it all stood a child, unaware that her innocent promise had awakened a truth long ignored. Change did not arrive with loud announcements or dramatic moments. It came quietly, through small actions that slowly began to shift the direction of his life. Inside the prison, the man no longer counted days by anger or fear. He counted them by effort. Each morning, he reminded himself that redemption was not a gift given at the end, but a process built every single day. The legal process around his case continued, but now it moved differently. His lawyer spoke with cautious optimism. New documents had surfaced, timelines were being reviewed again, and witnesses were willing to speak. The truth was becoming clearer, piece by piece. Still, the man stayed grounded. He had learned that hope without humility could easily turn into pride again. Within the prison walls, his transformation was becoming visible. He volunteered to help in the library, teaching inmates how to read legal papers and write basic letters. Many of them had never been taught these skills. He did not speak as a former millionaire. He spoke as someone who had made mistakes and was learning from them. That honesty earned trust. Some inmates resisted him at first. They believed kindness always came with hidden intentions. But over time, they saw his consistency. He shared stories, listened without judging, and encouraged others to reflect on their choices. Slowly, a sense of purpose replaced the emptiness that once consumed him. The guards noticed the change too. He followed rules, avoided trouble, and often helped calm tense situations. Reports about his behavior shifted from neutral to positive. It was not something he chased, but it mattered. It showed that growth could be seen, even in a place built for punishment. Outside, the mother continued her quiet advocacy. She attended meetings, made phone calls, and shared information carefully. She never spoke publicly or sought recognition. Her focus remained clear. Justice must be fair, and truth must not be buried. People respected her calm strength. They listened because she spoke without anger. The daughter watched her mother closely. She did not fully understand the situation, but she noticed the seriousness in her mother's actions. When she asked questions, her mother answered gently, explaining that helping others was part of being human. The child nodded, accepting this as truth. Back in prison, the man received updates that his sentence might be reduced if new findings were accepted. The news should have made him happy, but instead, it made him thoughtful. He asked himself who he would be if freedom came. Would he return to old habits, or would he carry these lessons forward? He began writing a plan, not for business, but for life. He listed values instead of goals. Honesty, responsibility, service, humility. These words replaced profit margins and growth charts. For the first time, success meant something different. One evening, during a group session, he spoke openly about accountability. He admitted that even if some accusations were false, his past behavior had created the conditions for mistrust. He encouraged others to face their own truths, not to be free sooner, but to be better sooner. His words carried weight because they came from experience. As weeks passed, the system responded. Courts reopened parts of the case. Media attention softened as facts replaced rumors. The man remained calm through it all. He had learned that real change did not need applause. The mother received word that her efforts were making a difference. She felt no pride, only quiet satisfaction. She believed that when people chose conscience over convenience, society became stronger. At night, the man often thought about the girl. Her promise no longer felt like a miracle waiting to happen. It felt like a responsibility. She believed he could be saved. Now, he had to prove she was right. The process of redemption continued, step by step. No shortcuts. No guarantees. Just honest effort guided by lessons learned in the most unlikely place. Whatever the final outcome, he knew one thing. He was no longer the man who had entered prison broken and bitter. He was becoming someone worthy of the hope placed in him. Change did not arrive with noise or celebration. It came quietly, through small, steady actions that slowly reshaped his life. Inside the prison, the man stopped measuring his days by anger or fear. Instead, he measured them by effort. Every morning, he reminded himself that redemption was not something given suddenly. It was something earned through consistency and honesty. The legal process around his case continued, but now it felt different. His lawyer spoke with careful hope. New documents had appeared, timelines were being reviewed again, and certain witnesses were ready to speak. Truth, once hidden beneath chaos and public pressure, was slowly coming into the light. Still, the man stayed calm. He had learned that hope without humility could turn into pride, and pride had already cost him too much. Inside the prison, his behavior began to change in ways others could see. He volunteered in the library, helping inmates read official letters and understand simple legal papers. Many of them had never learned how to do these things. He did not act like a former billionaire. He spoke like someone who had fallen, learned, and was still learning. That honesty made people listen. At first, some prisoners did not trust him. They believed kindness always came with a hidden purpose. But day after day, he showed the same behavior. He listened more than he spoke. He shared food when someone had none. He gave advice only when asked. Slowly, suspicion turned into respect. A sense of purpose replaced the emptiness that once filled him. Even the guards noticed the change. He followed rules, avoided conflict, and often helped calm tense situations. His reports improved. It was not something he chased, but it mattered. It showed that growth could be recognized, even in a place meant only for punishment. Outside the prison walls, the girl's mother continued her efforts quietly. She attended meetings, made calls, and shared information with those who could help. She never spoke to the media. She never asked for attention. Her goal was simple. Justice should be fair, and truth should not be ignored. People listened to her because she spoke without anger or revenge. The little girl watched her mother closely. She did not fully understand everything, but she felt the seriousness in her mother's actions. When she asked questions, her mother answered gently, explaining that helping others was part of being human. The girl accepted this as natural truth. Back inside, the man was told that his sentence could be reduced if the new findings were accepted. The news should have filled him with joy, but instead, it made him thoughtful. He asked himself who he would be if freedom returned. Would he repeat old mistakes, or would he live differently? He began writing a plan, not for business, but for life. Instead of goals, he wrote values. Honesty. Responsibility. Service. Humility. These words replaced numbers and profit charts. For the first time, success meant becoming a better person, not a richer one. During a group session, he spoke openly about accountability. He admitted that even if some accusations were false, his past behavior had created mistrust. He encouraged others to face their own truths, not to shorten their sentences, but to change their hearts. His words mattered because they came from lived experience. Slowly, the system responded. Courts reopened parts of the case. Public opinion. The day the court reopened his case, the air inside the prison felt different. News traveled fast through the halls, saying that something important was happening. The man sat quietly on his bed, hands folded, heart steady. Months ago, this moment would have filled him with fear or excitement. Now, it filled him with calm. Whatever happened, he knew he was no longer the same person. When he was taken back to court, he did not walk in as the powerful businessman he once was. He walked in as a man who had learned to listen. The judge reviewed new evidence, overlooked records, and testimonies that had never been properly examined. Mistakes made during the investigation slowly came into focus. The truth was not simple, but it was clearer than before. As the hearing continued, the man did not interrupt or defend himself with anger. He answered questions honestly. When asked about his past decisions, he admitted his failures without excuses. The courtroom felt quiet, heavy with attention. People noticed his change. He was not fighting to protect an image anymore. He was standing for truth. Outside the courtroom, the girl's mother sat silently. She did not look at the man. She did not look at the cameras. She focused only on the process. She believed justice worked best when patience and truth walked together. Her hands rested calmly in her lap, her face steady. When the decision came, it was not complete freedom, but it was meaningful. His sentence was reduced. Some charges were dismissed. The court acknowledged errors and recognized his cooperation and personal transformation. It was not a victory filled with cheers. It was a moment of quiet justice. Back in prison, reactions were mixed. Some inmates congratulated him. Others stayed silent. The man accepted everything calmly. He knew that justice did not erase the past. It only corrected the future. As his release date moved closer, fear returned in a new form. He was afraid of the world outside. Afraid of who he might become again if he forgot the lessons learned inside. Prison had stripped him down, but freedom would test him. He spent his remaining days helping others prepare for life after prison. He shared advice, helped write resumes, and spoke about responsibility. He reminded them that freedom was not just walking outside, but choosing better every day. His words carried weight because they were lived, not memorized. The girl's mother finally received official notice that the case had changed. She felt relief, not happiness. She believed fairness had spoken. That was enough. When her daughter asked about the crying man, she said softly, "He is learning." The girl smiled, satisfied. The day of his release arrived quietly. No media waited. No crowd gathered. He stepped outside with one small bag and a deep breath. The sky looked wider than he remembered. Sounds felt louder. Life felt fragile and precious. He did not rush away. He stood still for a moment, grounding himself. He reminded himself that this second chance was not owned. It was borrowed. Later that day, he asked to meet the woman and her daughter. The meeting was simple. No speeches. No apologies spoken aloud. Their eyes said enough. He knelt in front of the girl and thanked her. She looked confused and said, "My mommy said people can change." He smiled, holding back tears. The mother nodded politely. She did not claim credit. She believed everyone walked their own path. She only helped clear the way. That evening, alone in a small room, the man reflected on everything. Justice had corrected part of his story, but transformation had rewritten it completely. He understood now that power without compassion was empty. Wealth without responsibility was dangerous. Part 7 of his journey was not about winning a case. It was about earning a future. A future shaped not by fear, but by conscience. Freedom did not feel like a celebration. It felt like responsibility. As the man stepped into his new life, he understood that the past would always walk beside him. The world had not forgotten his fall, and he did not expect it to. What mattered now was what he chose to build from what remained. He did not return to grand offices or luxury homes. Instead, he chose a quiet place to live, simple and honest. He wanted to stay close to the lessons he had learned, not escape them. Every morning, he woke up early, not because he had to, but because discipline now gave him peace. The first thing he did was listen. He met people he once ignored. Former employees, community workers, and families affected by his decisions. Some welcomed him. Some did not. He accepted both reactions without complaint. Apologies were offered without expectation. Repair, he learned, was not about being forgiven. It was about being accountable. He used what remained of his resources differently now. Not to rebuild power, but to create opportunity. He supported education programs for underprivileged children, legal aid for those without a voice, and job training for former inmates. Each effort was guided by one question. Would this help someone stand on their own feet? The little girl grew older, still unaware of how deeply she had shaped his life. He visited her and her mother occasionally, always respectfully, never intruding. He did not try to become part of their lives. He simply remained grateful. To the girl, he was just the man who smiled a lot and listened carefully. To him, she was a reminder of pure belief. The mother continued her work quietly, unchanged by recognition. When people praised her, she redirected attention toward the importance of fairness and compassion. She taught her daughter that kindness was not something to announce. It was something to live. Over time, the man began speaking to small groups, not as a success story, but as a warning and a lesson. He spoke about how easy it was to lose humanity while chasing achievement. He spoke about how a child's words reached him when wealth and influence failed. His voice was calm, never dramatic. That honesty made people listen. There were difficult days. Days when memories returned, when shame whispered that change was temporary. On those days, he returned to service. He volunteered, listened, and worked. Action became his answer to doubt. Years passed. His name slowly stopped being connected only to scandal. It became associated with rebuilding, fairness, and quiet impact. He never tried to control his image again. He let his actions speak. One evening, he attended a small community event. Children were laughing, parents talking, music playing softly. He stood at the edge, watching. The girl, now older, recognized him and waved. He waved back, smiling. In that moment, he felt complete. He realized that salvation had never been about escaping prison. It was about learning how to live with integrity. The promise made by a child had not saved him alone. It had shown him the path to save himself. His story did not end with success or wealth. It ended with purpose. And that, he finally understood, was the richest ending of all.